So this begins chapter 21. This is custom graphics. The previous chapter we did built-in graphics, and this is a special session because Haley is with me here in the studio. And so I'm going to do some of the work for the first time in the upper left-hand screen. Now the reason Haley's here is she knows our studio very well and has gotten very adept at using the programs that are out there. And so let me start out with the par command. And the par command is useful for putting in graphical parameters that are global. And I'm going to set margins here to 5s all the way around. I did that ahead of time just to make sure everything works out. One thing you're going to get used to in R when you're doing custom graphics is those 4 numbers are always going to be the bottom margin, the left margin, the top margin, and then the right margin. A lot of times when you see 4 numbers like that, that's what's going on. Now when you put in a command up here, nothing happens down below, and I'm going to put in one more command here, and this is the plot command. And I'm going to plot 0 and 9 for my x value, and then -10 and 20 for the y value. And then I'm going to put type equals quote end quote. That will plot nothing. And then for a y label, I'm just going to put in the empty string. And once again, when I hit return on this, nothing happens. But this is where, and Haley, you're going to have to help me on this, I have to probably highlight this, don't I?
Yes.
And select
Command A.
Command
Control A. And
okay. So that will be a Command A on a Mac, but if you're doing this on a Windows box, you might have a different sequence there. So you've got 3 different platforms. You got Mac, and you got Linux, and you've got Windows, and you'll have slightly different things needed to get this highlighted. But once it's highlighted, you can then click on Run, and you'll see down in the console, it's like typing those in. And here is my plot. Notice the x-axis goes from 0 to 9. The y-axis goes from -10 to 20. There's nothing in the plot. And I say, let there be no y label here, and there is no y label. But the x label defaults to whatever is in the x parameter here at plot, which is 0, 9. So now what we're going to do is go basically step by step and kind of decorate this plot a little bit. I'll start out with text, 610, plotting region. And what this will do is this will take and it will plot at the point 610, and that's centered at 610. It'll do plotting region. So once again, I'm going to do the Command A and do Run. And it'll do those 3 commands again. And you can see plotting region, the 6 is where it's centered horizontally. And then vertically, right at 10, if you come right across at 10, you'll see that's the middle of that particular text statement. Here's another one, throw in, which is the points command. And points, I'm going to go 4, -10, and it will plot a point at 4, -10. So again, highlight that region, click Run, and you can see a point has now been added at 4, -10. The default on the point is an open circle, and that's kind of handy just in case 2 points are right next to each other. They won't cover each other up so much. Here's another example. I can go points 8, 16, and this time I put in PCH, which is for the plotting character, and I'm going to use plotting character number 3 in this case. Once again, Command A on a Mac to highlight it, and then you click on Run, and you can see that whatever plotting character number 3 is, it's going to be a plus. So you can go out and Google what these plotting characters are in R, and they will have examples. Here is another one, which I'll tack on the end. This is the Polygon function. And what you do is you put all of the x's up front, and I'm going to put in 0, 0, 1, 1. and that's my X values. And then for the Y values, I'm going to put in 0, 2, 1, and 0. And you can put in color if you want to fill in the polygon. I'll put in the color gold here. And again, you highlight all of it and click on Run. And there is the little polygon right there that is showing up. R is smart enough to go ahead and complete. I gave it 4 points. It'll go ahead and return to back to where it started. So you can do a polygon like that. Do a little bit of text at this point. So text, and at the point 219, I'm going to put in a string that is bold font. And in addition to bold font, I've got to specify that that is font number 2. And when you run that code, you can see at the point 219, here is bold font. The other thing you can do is, let's say you go back and you say, that's bigger than I want that to be a little bit smaller. There is a CEX parameter, and if I want it to be half that size, I can put CEX equals 0.5. And once again, we highlight that and run, and now it'll be made a little bit smaller on the bold font. All right, 2 more things that I'd like to do here before I let Haley take over and show you some of the other things in RStudio are I can set an X value. Let's start out by setting this 0 through 4, and I can set a vector Y to x squared minus 3, so that's going to be a parabola, and I can plot that parabola with the lines command with just X and Y. When that's highlighted and run, you can see here's my parabola, but if you look, you'll notice it goes from 0, -3 up to the next point, and it's not very smooth. You can actually see that this is 4 line segments, and you might want it smoother. So this is why we're doing everything up here in this upper left-hand corner. I can come back here and this time go in and say I want this to sequence from 0 to 4, and have a bi value of, say, 0.1. And now if you were to run this, you'll see it'll look a lot smoother down here than it did before. So that's an example. I'm going to do one last example, then I'll have Haley show you a few other things, and this is the arrows command. Let's say I want to go from the point 6, 6, and I want to draw an arrow to the 33rd value on the X side and the 33rd value on the Y side. That is the way you would do it. And when I click run, it has a mistake. And that's because I used arrow and I should have used arrows. So I had the wrong name of the function. So now I click run, and you can see there's a big huge arrow that starts at 6, 6 and goes to whatever the 33rd element is in my X and Y pair there. So Haley and I are going to change chairs right now, and I'm going to have her take over a little bit. Let's see, what do we do next?
So I'm going to show you how to, once you have a plot, how to export it and zoom. So once you have a plot on the right hand corner, you can zoom by just clicking zoom. Oh, and you can see, and in some computers you have another window popping up, and if you zoom it the other way or shrink it, it will rescale on its own.
My guess is if you take the cursor down to the lower right and click on the, yeah, that R right there, it'll take you back.
And then after that, you can export it by clicking export, save as image. Here you can see that you can actually mess with the width and the height. And if you click maintain aspect ratio, then it would rescale on its own. So let's say like 500 to 500, and then click Update Preview, and this is the plot you get. And after you mess with the width and the height and you get to the plot that you want, you can save it by first clicking the directory and specifying where you want your file to be. Let's just say desktop for now. And then you can just save it, click save, and then it will save in the desktop. Or you can click on view plot after saving, and then when you save it, there will be a plot right here. The next thing I wanted to talk about is how to have another tab on RStudio. So one thing I like to do is when you have a lot of codes like this, you might want to make certain changes, and sometimes like you don't want to mess with the original code. Then I like to have a new tab and click on our script, and then just copy and paste everything. Oop. And just make small changes from the next tab. So I can make small changes here. For example, I want to say I want another plot, or I want to say x goes from 0 to 5. And here we are.
That's also fantastic when you're doing programming, because sometimes you'll have one file that's working and you want to extend the code, but you don't want to make a mistake and overwrite something that you've got in there already. So that's not a bad trick in terms of starting, from the next point, and then that way you won't lose any of the good stuff that is already working.
Right.
And that's it for custom graphics. I may put in a second session here, so you'll see a second graph that is available. And the best thing you can do now is go into R and try to experiment a little bit.